Merry Christmas Eve. What is it? Wednesday or Tuesday? Tuesday, December 23rd or 24th? 24th, 2024. 12/24/24. Hey, I didn't even think about it, but this past month, it was 12/12/24. 12 plus 12 is 24. That would have been interesting to think about on that day. Time to drink from skulls. Oh my God. Oh my God. So, yesterday, yesterday I got the February issue to print. Yeah. Yesterday I got the February issue to print. Yeah, and I did some work on my website, updated some stuff. Yep. And I wrote my holiday message on my sandwich board in my front door. Yeah. Yeah. Sent out an e-holiday card. Yeah. And I made dinner last night. What did I make for dinner last night? I made a spinach salad with, chicken substitute patty, a filet, corn filet. And the salad was good. It had tomato and cucumber and red onion and avocado and spinach. And then homemade dressing using that leftover brine I had. And then we had some of the grilled eggplant on top of that salad too, and labneh. And then I had toast tips, and that was good. It was good. The eggplant and the labneh on the toast tips was really good. And then the chicken spinach salad, the fake chicken spinach salad, was good. It was a satisfying dinner. It was. So, anyway. Now it's Christmas Eve. And it's raining here, and I hurt. It's raining here. Oh man, there were some crazy swells here in Santa Cruz yesterday. There's all these advisories where everybody's supposed to stay away from the coast because the water's so rough. The waters are so rough right now. But that must be why I was hurting so bad, because that weather system was coming in. Anyway, the end of the Santa Cruz Pier, the wharf, washed off. No more bathrooms. The ocean said, no, stop pooping down here. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I was just down there a couple weeks ago. I took a bunch of pictures. Really beautiful pictures, but I was just there. Yeah. It's a place I like to go. Yeah. We'll see. It's obviously not very safe now, is it? It's infrastructure issues. It's California infrastructure issues. California has neglected infrastructure for decades, right? Most of the infrastructure that is in the state was new 50 to 60 years ago, right? Like stuff, like the newest stuff in California, the majority of it. That's the newest stuff, right? And it has been ignored. It has been ignored in maintenance. And I mean, that goes for roads and overpasses and, you know, and it's been like last ditch effort, right? California waited until, you know, last minute to really look at any of this, and it's caused a lot of problems. It's caused a lot of problems socially, and economically, right? Because now it's like we're at this like critical peak clusterfuck. It's like, oh my gosh, emergency money is allocated for this community, that community, whatever. People have just been really lackadaisical. They've been really laid back. They've been really lazy about it. And it's because of the weather. It's like the double-edged sword of the beautiful weather out here. Because you think, oh, there's not so much going on. Like you don't have like wear and tear in your face so much, right? Or in the same ways. It's like when you're in a climate like the Midwest or the Northeast or whatever, or even the Southeast, where you know there's snow and everything, and the ice and the freezing and thawing, the freezing and thawing. So like you have more, um, I don't know, obvious wear and tear when you have the freeze and the thaw, because the ice, it expands water expands when it freezes, and so water busts stuff up more. But you still have it out here, right? Like you still have the wear and tear, and um, yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's what the story is out here. It was like we were in Oakland and we were living over in Jingletown, and this was one of the other things that people got angry with me about. And um, oh, it was a case. It was a case of shoot the messenger, right? Like, because the stuff that they were mad about that I was talking about was like, I had nothing to do with it. Wasn't even alive, like when all this shit started, right? Like I'm just telling you what's going on here. Like there was that, like the pothole that kept opening up because they planted these trees along the line where they laid the sewer line, and it was all terracotta pots or pipes, and then all the sewer lines that went through Alameda, and the island of Alameda is built on landfill backfill, right? On trash. That's why it's like everybody's always trying to clean up the estuary. And it's a big joke. You can't clean up the estuary because, Alameda is a trash heap. You'd have to remove almost all of Alameda Island in order to clean up the estuary, right? But like those pipes were breaking down and needing replacing. And so that's why there were potholes that were opening up because water was pooling, and there was all of this, damage from tree roots and stuff. And then, people were all upset. Oh, don't cut down the trees. We need trees. It's like, oh yeah. Yeah, you do. We need trees. We do need trees, but not this one. And you also need to be able to flush your toilet and drink clean water. So, there was that. But there was this overpass. So there were 8 overpasses in the city that needed to be retrofitted. And the retrofitting projects began long before we were ever in Oakland. When we were in Jingletown, the last one was the 23rd Street overpass. It was right outside our window. And that was the last one in Oakland on the project that was slated. And people that lived in the neighborhood did not remember. I went. The reason I know all the back history on this is because I was on the steering committee at the time there for the Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council, and I was going to the PG&E or not PG&E Caltrans community meetings. They were coming to the neighborhood meetings, right? And I was, that's why I knew all this stuff. And so what the issue was, the city had scheduled all of the construction. It was like 10 years before, right? So when it was approved and everything. And then they couldn't do them all at once, right? because 8 overpasses in a city, that would be crazy to have that construction going on all at once. Not to mention the manpower and blah 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 blah. So they scheduled them to be like one or two at a time, and they were finally down to the last one, which was the 23rd Street overpass, which was in our neighborhood, and it had been 10 years since the neighborhood had really been, consulted on it or told about it, and people didn't remember all this shit from 10 years before. So they were mad because they're like, well, you didn't tell us you were going to do this. And I'm like, well, yeah, we did. And like these were, so they came through and they're like, here, we're going to be starting. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. And people were mad about where they're going to park their cars and all this shit. And like, oh, the kids are not going to be able to walk to school. And they're like, well, you're going to drive your kids to school. And it needed to be done. Like it needed to be done. But it had been a procrastination. And, the whole thing was for community safety because part of what they were retrofitting for heavier vehicles, different tires, because tires are different now, particularly the ones that are used on big rigs. Like the tires have metal in them, the rubber does, and it's harder on the road, right? And so there was stuff they were doing for retrofitting for that, and also for earthquake safety, and that was the big one. But this had all been, the whole project when they started it 10 years earlier had been left kind of like to the last minute. Now this was like the tail end of it, and they had left this neighborhood to the very end because they said this was one of the most difficult neighborhoods to work with as a city service provider. And the Caltrans had a building at the end of our street, Calcott Place. It was a cul-de-sac, and Caltrans had a big like had a big building there that had um, cars and some tools and shit in it. It was like a warehouse, like it was like a big garage underneath, and they had offices up top. Had a big mural on it of sea turtles. The Caltrans building. Anyway, that neighborhood. Oh my god. Yeah. So these people were like all mad, and I was the one that took the flyers around for the meeting, the reminder meeting of, okay, now it's time to do yours. Finally, this is the last one of the project. And people were all mad, and they were mad at me, and they took it out on me, right? In community. Gossip and stuff like, who did she got the city to do this, and I didn't get the city to do shit. I just happened to be there when the city was doing it, and I understood their project because I went to the meeting, and they showed the plans, right? They showed the blueprints and everything, and the drawings, and all that shit. There was this guy in our building. His name was George. What the hell was his last name? Greek guy. Atheist. He hated me because he was an atheist, and I went to church, and that pissed him off. And he and his wife, she had little like rodent-looking eyes. She looked at me like that. She hated me. She hated me. He was an architect. Oh, and he drove a Tesla before everybody else had Teslas. George, what the hell was his last name? And ended in Keese, right? Something dumping Keese. I can't remember. Anyway, oh, I was coming in from like we'd all been sitting outside at the barbecue. There'd been a building barbecue. Those happened impromptu, fairly regularly. There were a bunch of grills down in the common area, and you could go down there and barbecue, and people went down there to barbecue. So it was a night when lots of people had been outside barbecuing, and everybody was talking, and I was talking about this, and I had said I'd seen the plans, blah 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 blah. And he and his wife got all irritated, and they pushed up from the table, and she just like slapped her hands on the table, and she's like, "Let's go." And so they went in. And then shortly after that, Omar and I were taking our stuff in because they lived on the first floor and we were up on the fourth floor. And I had to go past I wasn't going up the stairs because I was carrying stuff. So I had to go past their door to get to the elevator. And their door was open when I walked by. Um, and he came out and he's like, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so where did you learn how to read a blueprint? And he was like reading me. He and his wife, like she was standing there. She's like tapping her foot, and and he's like, you have no business going to those meetings and talking to them. You don't even know what you're doing. I said, well, I said, okay. I said, granted, I'm not an architect like you are, but I said, why don't you go over to the meetings? I don't have time to be doing such things for this city. This city doesn't care. Blah blah blah. I said, look, I saw the plans. They're gonna have to park their cars down here. That's what the plan always was to set up their because there was like so at the cul-de-sac end of our street was the Caltrans station. And then at the other end of the street was the light where the pothole kept opening up because of the pipes. And then there was like a big median area there, right? Because it was the off ramp from the overpass. And there was a big median area there. People used to take their dog, used to use it like a dog park, right? People in the neighborhood used it like a dog park. It wasn't a dog park, it was a median. How people used it. And there was this palm tree that had been planted 150 years before. And they were going to be cutting down this palm tree. Well, the palm tree was in large part causing the pothole. I went to the meetings, I talked to the guys, and it had been in the plan from the beginning, 10 years earlier, that that tree was going to have to come out and that they were going to take that tree out when they worked on this overpass because they were going to use that median to set up their porta-johns and the on-site office, right, where all the guys coming in to work on site would check in. And people were just like beside themselves. And this is what this guy George was fighting with me about. I'm like, I saw the plans. I said all of this was in the plans when they were introduced to the community 10 years ago. And he was telling me that I didn't know how to read plans. And I was just like, okay, whatever. But then, like both sides of the neighborhood railroaded me because they said that people were saying that, all of this was being done this way because of me, because I was going to these meetings and saying that I represented them. Well, I never went to any meeting and said I represent this, that, or the other thing. When I'd go to meetings, they'd ask you where you live, what neighborhood you're from, or whatever, and I'd give them that. It's like, this is where I live. But I never said that I represented any of these people, and none of this stuff was my idea. I was merely a messenger between the meeting, the people that ran the meeting and were doing that work, and the place where I lived. Like, I had nothing to do with anything other than I was the messenger. And had I not gone to the meetings and told them about it, all of this stuff would have happened anyway, with or without their approval or knowledge or whatever. So it's just like, that's why I don't bother going to meetings anymore, because like shit's gonna happen whether I go or not. And anytime I go, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Oh, but that wharf collapsed. That wharf collapsed down there at the end. At least it wasn't like Capitola where the whole damn thing washed away. That one, that one was obviously a mess. That one was very, very obviously a mess. This one, like looking at the piers, at the piles underneath the wharf, the piles, like there's a lot of piles down there that need to be replaced, and that's going to be a huge job. And there's a lot of businesses down there. I mean, there's a number of restaurants. There's like 4 or 5 big restaurants down there. By big, I mean like large seating areas, and not cheap, right? Like not cheap restaurants, right? I think there's one diner, but even that diner that's down there, They're all seafood restaurants. All of them. They're all seafood restaurants. And, even the diner that has burgers and stuff too, that's down there, it's not a cheap diner, right? We don't eat down there because there's not really, none of them have vegetarian stuff on the menu, right? The Ideal, which isn't down on the wharf, but is up, you know, on the road, like, is the only one down there that has a couple vegetarian things. But even that, they're all seafood restaurants. Of course they are. They're right there on the coast. They're all seafood restaurants. There's a whole bunch of tchotchke shops down there, as well. Touristy stuff. People selling bathing suits and flip flops and Santa Cruz hoodies and surf paraphernalia. That stuff's like all gonna be. I can't even imagine. It's gonna be such a pain in the ass. But infrastructure has been neglected in California. Yeah, yeah. Oh, the weather when it's like this, I just hurt so bad. I just hurt so bad. So today, I told Omar, I said, "You gonna relax and do nothing more?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "What are you gonna do?" He's like, "All the stuff I normally have to do." And he's talking about like the chickens and all that shit. And it's just like, yeah, you gotta do that stuff. I mean, you're not gonna have to work tomorrow. I said, for crying out loud, make sure you like kick back and just do nothing for a little bit. Jeez. So he's like, "Oh, I gotta go replace the batteries in the cameras and blah blah blah," which he does, but whatever. You have to go out and do that in the rain. I got sauce to make for the pizzas tomorrow, and later on I'll make the dough, that'll be much later on tonight because I want that to proof overnight in the refrigerator. And today I'm gonna make cookies. I made the weed butter yesterday, so today I'll make the cookies. I'll make the cookies today. Gonna make cookies. Yep. Oatmeal chocolate chunk weed cookies. I'll make those today. Usually I make butter cookies. I put sugar on top of them so they look like stained glass on top. I have kitty cookie cutters because it's the Kitty Pants Ranch. But last year I made peanut butter cookies, and this year I'm gonna make oatmeal. Mm, yeah. Anyway. Anyway. And we'll have tamales tonight. Hot tamale, hot tamale. Hot tamale, hot tamale. Hot tamale, hot tamale. Hot tamale, hot tamale. Christmas. Christmas music. Ugh. Yeah, I was looking at my USPS informed delivery email this morning. Looks like we're getting something in the mail from his mother. Ugh. Everything with her just leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. It has been. I spent so many years. I spent so many years trying to cultivate a good relationship with her. And it was always for naught. And in in the course of it, it has contributed to the deterioration of any kind of relationship I have with my family. Um, I mean, when it comes to that, there's more to it than that with my family. there is intergenerational trauma that has been unaddressed, and the layers of that are cultural. Has to do with the specific cultures that my family comes from and what cultural practices are when dealing with certain types of things. And those cultural practices removed from the number one, the context of history or the context of greater societal um, environment, right? The uprooting and moving to a new place kind of thing. They've been pathologized, right? And the context does not exist for them except for within the boundaries of the family. And this, I think this is something that is a challenge for all ethnic groups that come to the United States at any time. And for some groups, I think it is harder or, more amplified. And I'm speaking specifically about Eastern European culture. So, there are a lot of people here in the United States, like myself, with Eastern European heritage. Um, but there's kind of a phenomena because, when you're as far removed as I am, so like my ancestors that came from Eastern Europe, they came post World War One or during World War One to just before World War Two, right? Um, and it's not to say that there weren't people that came before or after, came from different places for different reasons and in much smaller groups. I'm talking about large influx. And, you know, a large community, very specific community, settled where I was born, right? Like in that area. And there were other marginalized ethnic groups that had settled in that area as well. And so it was kind of a place for outcasts, right? People who came to this country because they were outcasts in their country, but were also still outcasts in this country, right? The so the slur honky, right, comes from the term hungy or milhungs, and it's because these are people that were leaving the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and or the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And there's many different ethnic groups that were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But, coming to the United States at that time, they were all Hungies. They were all Hungarians. They weren't Hungarians. Not everybody was actually an ethnic Hungarian. Um, yeah, and I worked in the steel mills. That's where that word comes from. Um, yeah. So, I mean, that's like, from one oppression to a different kind of oppression, um, or exclusion, not even necessarily oppression, held by the same rules, but this exclusion because the language was very, very different than all of the other languages, right? And customs were very different. Um, and everybody stayed really segregated. So there's this trauma that is passed on intergenerationally, of always knowing that, oh, we're not part of the us, we are part of the them, right? So it's a little different. It's a little different, you know. Usually when you have instances of us and them mentality, whatever group you're in considers themselves us, right? It's different to identify as the them. And that is very much the case with that particular group of Eastern European immigrants from that time period and that place. They identified with being them. So, there people let go of a lot of identity of things that other ethnic groups held on to for personal identity. Um, and the things that were held on to um, were very much them kind of qualities, you know, the things that made them them. And it's hard to explain. But talking about it, talking about it all is taboo. And that's part of why I am the them of the them, right? It's shunning. Shunning is practiced culturally. And I'm definitely shunned by my family. Yeah. I won't conform to the family role that was assigned to me, right? I won't conform to it. I won't accept it. I won't tolerate it. And so I'm shunned, right? So it's like if you're chosen to be one of the abused in the family, whatever that abuse is, whatever label it is that they give you, if you refuse to accept that, then you're shunned. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard. Like, I miss feeling part of a family group. Growing up, it was a fairly large family. It's not anymore. I mean, I don't know if my youngest sister has remarried or had kids. I don't know. I haven't seen her in 6 years now, 5 years now. I haven't seen any of my family in 5 years. Um, but when I saw my sisters last, that was the last time. That was the first time I had seen them in like 5 years. So it's like I haven't, and I don't hear from them. Only last time I heard from either of my sisters was, you know, my dad texted me. He's like, "Oh, Mary has something to tell you," and then she texted me and told me she got divorced. Not that she was getting divorced, but that she was divorced. Like that doesn't happen overnight. And I'm just like, what is that? She's like, but I want you to know I'm okay. I'm like, what does that even fucking mean? Right? And there was like no conversation after that. And I'm just like, whatever. I don't even know. I don't know what their fucking story is. And there's so much, you know, that you're expected to just know. But because I live far away, I can't just know because I'm not there, right? And that's part of the punishment for going far away. Like, you don't live near us anymore. You abandon us. You betrayed us. You're not part of the family unit. That's why you don't know all these little context clues of what's going to what's going on, right? Like, if I lived close within the unit, there all of this like lack of conversation, things that aren't spoken of out in the open, would be known because they'd be observed, right? So, but because I'm not there to observe them, I'm not in on the secret communication, right? That's how that works. And that's why those cultures are so difficult for other people to understand, right? The things that are culturally not spoken about but are observed and known, just known. Yeah. So, I miss feeling like like I'm part of a family, but I can't say that I miss that manipulation. And the further from it that you get, the more you recognize it, even in, things that appeared to be, um, at the time, you know, healthy bonding family things. You reckon when you step th- that far out of the circle and look back, it's easy, hindsight is 2020. It's like, oh, that was so much fun at the time. It felt like so much fun. That felt like, but it's like, oh no. Oh no, that's what was really going on there. And it's hard. It's hard to reconcile the memories that were supposed to be or you thought were your good memories to see the shadow behind them. Yeah. Yes. Right? Not so shumne. Anyway, so I've kind of abandoned the Easter Christmas traditions that I grew up with. So like in my family, we did Italian food from my mom's side of the family for Christmas and the Slovak and Ukrainian food for Easter. And I'm not saying that I don't make Italian things or I don't make Christmas things. I just don't, or Easter or Slovak or Ukrainian things. I just don't stick to like there were very specific things we made at very specific times, right? So I mean, sure you can say, oh, pizza's Italian, but it's pizza. Like my family would have never eaten pizza. We ate pizza. Sometimes we got pizza on New Year's, right? But even on New Year's, there's certain things that you're supposed to eat. You're supposed to eat cabbage and you're supposed to eat mushrooms. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so every year I ask Omar, "What do you want me to make?" I make, and that's what I do. I make what he wants, right? Or I give him some options, and that's how we came to pizza. I've made pizza on Christmas before. It's hard to argue with pizza, right? Who doesn't love pizza? People with celiac disorder. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, anyway, just accepting that, you know, I've been telling people I'm 46 for like months now. I'm going to be 46 in January. I'm 45. I'm going to be 46 this coming January. At this point in my life, just accepting that I'm never going to be part of a healthy, happy family unit, that my life is solitary and is going to only become more solitary, and that's just the way it is for me. It's better to be alone than to be with people who abuse you.